Growing Nashville is Fox 17 News' way of tracking the opportunities and the challenges associated with mid-state growth.
With an estimated 86 people moving to our area daily, one of those challenges is traffic.
From congestion to public transportation, Fox 17 News is taking your questions and ideas directly to policymakers who are working on solutions.
Fox 17 News Growing Nashville Transportation Town Hall starts now.
And good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Fox 17 News Growing Nashville Town Hall. I'll get it out. I'm Scott Couch. Tickled you're with us.
I'm Megan O'Halloran. Joining us tonight on our panel is Steve Bland, the CEO of WeGo, Jessica Dauphin, CEO of the Transit Alliance of Middle Tennessee, Malik Gay, VP of Livability for the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce.
And we also have Brad Fries, who is the Deputy Director, am I right, that Deputy Director of NDOT. Delighted to have you here. Also Sabrina Sussman, who's the Chief Program Officer for the Mayor's Choose How You Move transportation plan. Guys, thank all of you for joining us. Let's start with Steve now from WeGo, and we've got everybody, and we're going to let you guys weigh in on that. If you'll roll up just a little bit to our first topic, and we're going to talk about Choose How You Move. A focal point of that program is relying on public transportation, buses, getting some people on there. Sabrina, the bus system in Nashville is not widely used. No secret about that. You're trying to get more people on it. How do you get people to do that? How do you get people like me to park their car, get on a bus, and get off the road?
Well, look, Scott, the best way is to make it more of the experience that they're looking for. And these are things that we're working closely with Steve and his team at WeGo to do just that. So when you offer more frequent service, when you make people feel confident in what they're expecting to experience from you on board and off board, when you make it easier to pay and you make sure you're going to new places, more and more people sort of see that as an opportunity to move themselves across the city. What I will say is Choose How You Move is not just for bus riders, it's really for everyone. So we're doing investments in sidewalks, in signals, in services, and in safety. And one of the things that we found is that everyone in our community sits at traffic lights, whether you're sitting in a car or on a bike or on a bus or even walking through. So the investments that Choose How You Move are making over the next 15 years means that you're making it a more enjoyable experience no matter how you choose to move throughout Nashville.
And some people understand for the first time the city has a dedicated funding source to pay for some of these things. And you guys, the voters of Nashville, said yes to that. Was it 60%, a little better than that?
66.
See, huge number, so 2/3. Let's just move down the line this way. And Brad, you get the next bite. How do you get people to get on the bus or to do some things that are different than what they normally do to help things?
Right. Well, Scott, it's really from an NDOT perspective, Nashville DOT perspective, it's about how we maintain the system, how we make it the most reliable as possible, how the transit service is the most reliable as possible. So that, you heard Sabrina mention signals. That's a big part of what we do at the Nashville Department of Transportation, how we time those signals, but also how we make those signals more proactive. To adjust based on current traffic needs at the time, and also how we design our system to support transit service on those roads as well, so we can actually have a reliable service to encourage people to take that service.
Sure, more generally, I guess coming more often to get people on. And Malik, let's talk about from the Chamber's perspective. You're out there trying to sell our city to different people coming in. Transportation's an issue. What do you tell them? I mean, we're not Atlanta, but it's not awesome.
Scott, thank you for the question. Selling Nashville is the easiest job in the world. Everybody wants to be here. To put a number to it, the Nashville economy grows by about 25 to 35,000 jobs every single year. So transit is more than just moving people. It's moving the economy. So I think the important thing is meet people where they are. Give them safe transit, reliable transit, transit that gets them to point A to point B, where they could work on their computers, talk to their partner as well. I think once more choice is implemented, people are going to take it.
I hope you're right. Now, Sabrina, as I understand, Jessica, as I understand what the Transit Alliance does, you've got kind of a more, not just Nashville, but a more global thing in Middle Tennessee. How does that figure in?
Well, people are moving to Nashville. When the Chamber is selling Nashville, they're not just selling Davidson County, they're also selling the region. The Transit Alliance operates in the 10-county region. from Montgomery to Murray, from Dixon to Wilson, right? And so we're looking at that holistically and how we get more connected. We're focused right now on the 3 big rocks for the region to improve our connectivity and our mobility. The first one is to celebrate our assets. We do have the capability to get around this region without using a single occupancy vehicle. I've done it in my Transit Citizen Leadership Academy just recently. We went from Capitol View to the Mount Juliet Chamber of Commerce and back without using a single occupancy vehicle. We walked, we used the WeGo bus, we got on the WeGo train, the WeGo Star, and then we took TMA group van stars back, van pools. And it was absolutely wonderful, and you can do it and it can be done. You just gotta really think about what we do have. The second thing is to really focus on building more housing along transit routes. It's the D word, density. People don't like to hear that, but that's the message we really need to be hearing right now is now that Nashville-Davidson County has passed the historic dedicated funding source to improve transit, and thank you for voting. Now it's time to really help support that ridership by focusing on getting more housing in and around high capacity corridors. And that can extend out into the region, because we do have established regional transit assets too, which Steve is the CEO of the RTA. And the third one is to continue to improve those connectivities and the offering service. That frequency is key to getting people to use transit. For people who don't see themselves actively using transit today, I would say that maybe you would if it were faster and more convenient than your car.
And like you say, if it happened, like on some really regular schedule, you can say, okay, I can wait 15 minutes or something. Right. Steve, I didn't make you wait till last, except that it seems only fair that after you kind of get the global thing, and you are head of the RTA and WeGo. What did you think about what you heard, and what new things can people expect from you?
First of all, I was taking copious notes.
Of course you were.
So we'll take those back. There are 2 observations I would make. First of all, I think it's important to remember that 30,000 people a day rely on WeGo public transit to get to and from wherever they're going, school, work, entertainment, you name it. But really dovetailing on what almost everybody in the panel said, when you can make it competitive and you make it reliable, people will use it. And I'll point to a recent example. This season, like we did last year, we're partnering with the Tennessee Titans to supplement service for Titans games. That includes supplemental bus service, that includes running the WeGo Star train in from Lebanon, Mount Juliet, and that includes, thanks to people like Brad at NDOT, Metro Nashville Police having dedicated lanes on Woodland Street to get people through that traffic. Let's be honest, you go to a Titans game, there's going to be traffic. It's going to cost you a lot to park. Average over the first 2 home games this year, we're 750 folks, individuals, using our supplemental bus and rail service. And overall, our Sunday ridership was about 4,000 over average, so about 25% over our average Sunday, thanks to those types of partnerships and the fact that those folks knew that they could get in from, whether it was Bellevue or it was Mount Juliet or it was Sumner County, that they could get in faster on a bus or a train and cheaper than they could in their car.
That's how you speak to people. Now, before we leave WeGo, speak about some of the safety concerns. There have been some issues. I know you've been concentrating on it. What are you doing? What have you done?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the, we're going to talk about Choose How You Move and Mayor O'Connell's initiative, I suspect, quite a bit tonight. One of the things that really afforded us was the fiscal ability to do something we've wanted to do for years. Supplement security. So our security, our contracted security is 60% more coverage than it was. And the thing I'm particularly excited about is a new partnership, an expanded partnership with the Metro Nashville Police Department and Chief Drake. Chief Drake assigned a full-time transit liaison within the department, Captain Brian Williams, and Captain Williams is being charged with standing up a full-time transit policing unit, similar to what you'd see in much larger cities. So that's 2 prongs. There's the law enforcement side, there's the security side. And the third piece that we're working closely with the social service agencies on is that safety net side. Public transportation is a public asset. Unlike private property, we can't say, you can come in, you can't. Everybody's welcome, we want everybody in there. Some folks in our community are challenged, and we'll be working with those agencies through our Transit Ambassador program to try to help folks who maybe need a little bit of extra care.
If it was easy, anybody'd do it.
Yes.
All right, Megan?
All right, our next set of questions involve a fast-growing part of the region in Rutherford County. On average, the stretch of I-24 that connects the county with Metro Nashville sees 180,000 vehicles per day. TDOT recently added a smart corridor with variable speed limits and overhead signage to pinpoint accidents. Brad, we'll start with you over at NDOT. Are there any plans in the works from your agency to also help with the traffic congestion out there?
Absolutely. So if you look at Murfreesboro Pike, which is adjacent arterial to I-24 corridor, we actually have projects in partnership with WeGo for actually transit priority systems, actually to help with bus headways to actually reduce the travel times. But also, when we look at our signals, we are looking at the more proactive timing plans of our signals, more traffic responsive technologies. As part of Choose How You Move, we actually we are going to be able to fund the replacement of 600 of our signals. So that's nearly 2/3 of our entire signal system. So we're greatly excited about that. I'm rubbing my hands together. So we opened our traffic management center last October, and we're getting ready to start a lot of that integration and a lot of that improvement that you'll see.
Well, Brad, now that we've got you on the line here, a follow-up. What are the biggest challenges that you see in the South Nashville and the Antioch areas?
South Nashville and Antioch. So that's a great question. I mean, we see because of the growth in the people, coming in on their commutes and even the reverse commutes, people going to work in Southeast Nashville. We do see a lot of congestion, a lot of traffic congestion in that area. We also see opportunity for more sidewalks, more walkability in that area. So that's a big part of Choose How You Move as well.
All right, Scott, back to you.
All right, now sticking with the Interstate 24 corridor, there's talk about creating choice lanes. In fact, as we're taping this, I think TDOT is actually holding the first in a new series of community meetings about that. And these are essentially pay-per-use optional express lanes. Folks who've been to Florida, to Georgia, you probably use them. Total price tag for what we've heard about this is $5 billion, and the idea is a public-private partnership to pay for it. Jessica, let's let you have a bite at this. Public-private partnerships, do you think they're the future, if you would, of transportation of this type in these choice lanes?
They're certainly a part of the future, Scott. That's a great question. Public-private partnerships are a huge value add to implementing new infrastructure. Especially mobility infrastructure. It is already being used in other states and cities to great advantage to them, and I think it's only natural that we should also be exploring more public-private partnerships. So this is a great step forward for the region.
Is that the way they do it in other states, like in Georgia and the Sun Pass in Florida? Is that public-private partnership?
Some do. I think most do at this point. Because, like you say, this is a $5 billion project. You would be hard-pressed to find a local municipality or county with the ability to match that.
It's a lot of money.
For a federal grant.
A lot of moving parts there. Okay, now let's turn to our viewer questions. We've seen dozens of comments surrounding our growing Nashville Transportation Town Hall. One issue, though, that kept coming up. Do you think Nashville should prioritize expanding highways and widening interchanges? Back to you, Brad, with NDOT. What are your thoughts here?
Well, I'll just say that's a great question. There's a old adage that I've heard TDOT say and other agencies say, you can't build your way out of congestion. So no, I think we need to learn how to make our system work as efficiently as possible. There's also always going to be limitations in right-of-way. We can only build so many lanes. And even if we added those lanes, then, most of the time, outside of peak AM and PM periods, they would be vacant, so that's not the most efficient use of space or taxpayer-funded money. So we want to make the system work as best as possible through what we're talking about with system optimization, with the things like the I-24 Smart Corridor that TDOT has done along there, but also on our arterial side, how we actually work with the signalized systems and make sure we are making the system as reliable. And when I say reliable, reliability is really making that one day to the next variation as small as possible so people can know what to expect when they're coming in They know it's going to take them 30 minutes to get to work instead of one day taking 30 minutes and 60 minutes. We want to increase that reliability. That's really what we're after.
Consistency is key.
Yeah, the employers appreciate it too. Nobody likes workers who were late to work. I'm sorry, there was the traffic on the road, there was nothing I could do. Now, we've seen a major shakeup when it comes to public transportation when Elon Musk's Boring Company announced not long ago that we're going to make a tunnel from the airport into downtown. Jessica, back to you from the Transit Alliance. Is a project like this going to lead to more diversity in public transportation? Obviously, we've never had anything like that here. They're doing it in Las Vegas or starting to.
Right. It's certainly another tool in the toolbox. Right? I would not call it public transportation. It's more of a boutique travel style, right? But if it connects with our existing transit network, then it becomes another node of connections, giving people more options still to choose another mode outside of their personal vehicle.
Well, if I'm trying to get from downtown to the airport, and like you did with that group, all right, I know I can get to the airport on one of those cars for 10 or 12 bucks. Brad, let's get back to you from NDOT. What is this going to mean for locals? I mean, toward Jessica's point, is this something that you can see locals using at all? Or is this simply a tourist conduit to get folks from the airport to the convention center and the hotels downtown and back? How do you see it?
It's really early to know the answer to that, Scott. So I would say it's certainly innovative as far as the solutions they're talking about, but it's really too early for us to determine.
And it's not costing us anything at the moment. Yeah, because I mean, this is privately funded. All right, Malik, let's go. How is transportation in diversity like this going to impact folks for the chamber and as a way to attract people, other than it's another cool thing that Nashville has?
Absolutely, Scott. When you look at Nashville and you look at one of the biggest assets we really have to give our flowers to BNA Airport. The team that Doug Crulin have over there has done an exceptional job, and let's put a number to it. About 25 million people travel through BNA every single year. Any toolkit that could alleviate some of the congestion that happens on our highways is definitely helpful for everyday Nashvilleians.
And if you guys have not traveled a great deal, I recently did some traveling, and I came home to your point to really appreciate what a really nice airport Nashville has. Just saying, Megan travels a lot more than I do.
Well, let's get back to this. When it comes to other cities like Chicago and Atlanta, the light rail is a massive part of the transportation plan in those big cities. Sabrina, the Choose How You Move initiative, would light rail ever be something that we could see here in Nashville?
Great question. So as you know, there were earlier efforts within Nashville to fund dedicated transportation funding, and some of those did include an option for light rail. Choose How You Move, the referendum that voters passed last November, did not include a light rail option. We went ahead though and we built a list of projects talking about whether, again, it's services, safety, sidewalk, signals, that said here are the basics that we really need to fix here in Nashville. Honestly, it's a bit of a compact that the mayor made with the voting public that said your investment can make sizable changes to your day-to-day experience. And so we're really going to start with the basics, focus on the things that we first have to alleviate some of the problems with, and then maybe as we mature and continue to grow, we can reassess whether or not light rail is a good tool in the toolbox.
Brad, is that something that NDOT would consider?
Yeah, so as Sabrina was saying, you know, looking at where we're at foundationally, laying that foundation for the future as we look at the cross sections that we're thinking about when we look at Choose How You Move and laying those out, I think, you know, we are working to make the most out of this referendum, make the most as far as benefit, and I think Steve would have a great perspective on light rail in the future in there, but it is something that, you know, with the right cross-section and the right context, it would be something to consider.
Well, I'm getting to Steve, he's next. Steve, obviously with WeGo here, we have the
Feeling
WeGo
pretty
Star.
comfortable over here.
Could we expand the hours with the existing train that we have with WeGo Star?
The answer is yes and no. The limitation we have with the Star is through federal regulation. We're limited to 12 trips per day on the Star without a huge investment in technology and infrastructure. Now we can reshuffle those trips, and that's a plan and a process that the Regional Transportation Authority Board has adopted to try to shuffle more trips, say, to the evening hours when folks in Wilson County might want to come in for a Predators game or just downtown entertainment, to do some things on weekends. We do a lot of specials on the weekends, like the Titans Express. To go much beyond that, though, would be about $150 to $200 million investment. And I heard Jessica talk about it earlier, the issue of density along that line. So whether it's light rail or it's improvements we make to the STAR, one of the things we always have to look at is what is the market for that service and the cost benefit associated with the investment. Right now, as of today, or at least as of 2 years ago when we did the study and ran the numbers, about 13% of the people who can use the STAR are using the STAR. Now that doesn't sound very high, but actually from what we call a transit mode share perspective, the percentage of people making a trip using public transit, that's pretty huge for a city like Nashville. So one of the things that we'd have to do concurrently, besides building out the infrastructure, increasing operations, is also looking at density of development around the stations.
All right, thank you, Steve. Let's head back to our Fox 17 viewer questions. The next one asking, what do you think is the biggest cause of Nashville's traffic challenges? We'll go right back to you, Steve, to start.
Well, I'm not sure how people will take this, but I used to say a thing when people would ask me about traffic in a speech, and I'd say, remember, you're not sitting in traffic, you are traffic. So, I mean, traffic is a demand-based phenomenon, right? School lets out, we have school holidays, all of a sudden, magically, traffic is easier because folks aren't dropping their kids off at school. Summer vacations, you name it. The ultimate was anybody who, I guess, had the misfortune of having to drive around during the pandemic saw that, what traffic? So one of it is, I think, the extent to which people can look at their own behaviors, whether that's taking a trip that could be flexible during off-peak hours, using transit when it's appropriate, when it's convenient for them. So those occasions, is really going to be the secret sauce with congestion.
All right. Jessica, your thoughts?
Yeah, so great question, by the way. And just like planting a tree, the best time to invest in mobility infrastructure and services would have been 20 years ago, but the second best time is right now. And from my perspective, I really think one of the things that's causing our transit issues or traffic issues today is the decades of inadequate investment in the services and the infrastructure.
And Malik, what do you think is our biggest challenge?
Thank you, Megan. I think our biggest challenge is actually looking at the future. When we project what the population of the Nashville region will look like a decade from now, we're anticipating 295,000 new Nashvillians. Even if a fraction of those people decide to travel by car, it's going to cause significant congestion issues. I think our biggest challenge is making massive investments today to plan for our future as well.
Okay, Brad, same thing?
Yeah, I mean, you heard Steve talk about demand and demand management. I mean, that's really where we're at. We have those peak travel periods. We have many special events in the city of Nashville where we have a lot of people on the infrastructure at the same time concurrently. So how we manage that demand is really key, and that's what we're actually trying to do. Similar, with TDOT, for example, that with their choice lane, that's another demand management strategy that they're using on the freeway side. So yes, I think our biggest challenge is managing demand on our infrastructure and how we can operate the system most effectively.
And final thoughts, Sabrina, on challenges.
Well, I may take us back to what we started talking about earlier, which is signals, traffic signals. It might seem like it's really basic, but at the end of the day, one of the things signals do is to move traffic through intersections safely and efficiently. And here in Nashville, the last time we invested in our traffic signals was 60 years ago. There is a huge gap of technology innovation that we haven't applied. Can you imagine if it had been 60 years since you bought a computer or a new cell phone or invested in cellular technology? We wouldn't even have that. So I think one of the things that I really think Nashvillians will feel in the coming years is the impact of investments that we're making in fiber and traffic signals amongst our corridors. You'll feel it when you get to an intersection because you'll see more green lights. It'll move traffic through, and we can do demand-based programming that says after special events, after school pickup, all those times, our system can actually be responsive. Having a responsive system means that it's looking out and saying, this is when the demand is happening, this is where people want to be moving, and how do we best utilize the space that we do have, the lanes we do have, to move people efficiently where they're going.
Before we leave that, and I've got a question, but I got to ask this. How close are we to that synchronization? I'm pretty excited about the prospects, and I just wonder when we might start to see this traffic light talking to the next one, to your point, keeping me moving.
Well, the good news is we have starting, and there's actual fiber being laid right now. In Choose How You Move, our investments are right around the corner. In the next couple of weeks, you'll hear from us. We're going to council and saying, of the revenue that we've collected since February, it's time for us to spend some of it. So early, one of the things we're going to be focusing on is signal deployment. First, you lay some fiber, and then you go in and sort of do those technological hookups. You may not even see the brand new big yellow traffic light right away, but underneath all that, what you'll know is that the technology has started to work. And so you've gotten most of the benefit actually already. So when I say in a couple months, hopefully we're going to be breaking some ground, we'll invite you out to look at some construction. How about that?
That's exciting. Had to ask, and I apologize. It was a selfish question. I'm only thinking of myself. Now, we've talked about the fact that the mid-state options, coming to other cities. Malik, let's start with you. How do you feel about that, I guess, being a roadblock? Some places have the light rail already. Some places already have synchronized traffic lights. Some cities already have buy-in on, taking more rides with Steve. Your thoughts?
Scott, that's a really good question. I was at an event this morning with Sabrina, actually, and one of our speakers said something that really had me thinking. If you take the Southeast United States and make it one regional economy, it would be the 6th biggest economy in the entire world. When you think about the scale of what that means inside of our communities, I think what it means is we need to rapidly advance the technology we have inside of our community to actually serve people. So I think it takes a series of different investments across the spectrum.
Steve, how do you feel about it? And I'm sure you probably think, wake up thinking about it and leave work thinking about, how to knock down some roadblocks.
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to come down to having some very strategic conversations with communities with some very difficult choices. Earlier we talked about what might drive public transit usage. If I can make it faster, more reliable than your car, then you will use it. I think an initiative like TDOT's Choice Lanes initiative in the I-24 corridor will go a long way. Legislation for choice lanes requires that public transportation be able to use those choice lanes for free. So we will absolutely take advantage of that. But we're going to have to talk about how to allocate scarce real estate resources. In contrast with a lot of other southern cities, the streets in Nashville are pretty narrow. So there's not a lot of room to add capacity for, say, dedicated bus lanes, or even if we were to go to light rail tracks. So we're going to have serious conversations as the growth that Malik is describing occurs to say, is on-street parking the best use of that space? Is a center turn lane the best use of that space? Or is even a general traffic lane the best use of that space? Because that would be the #1 thing to start making our system both faster and more reliable. And when you add that frequency that everybody talked about, then it becomes kind of a magic formula.
Well, when you're talking about best use, please begin that conversation in Germantown. Just saying. Tough going over there. Sabrina, your thoughts on the roadblock question?
Yeah, I mean, I think your question made me think of that old adage, it's not the journey, it's the destination. I think when transportation's working really well, it's seamless. It's not about how you're moving somewhere. It's about you can get there safely, efficiently, quickly. All of those things are sort of part of what makes this region really one where people are hungry to come and experience Nashville. So I think our job sitting on this panel are to help make sure that that's the experience visitors and residents alike are having. The more and more you're able to give a reliable experience, I think that makes people say, you know what? There's a lot of destinations in Nashville I want to be able to get to, and the journey makes it worth it.
And 25 million are already doing it, for sure. Megan?
Well, the public eager for all of your input. Here comes our next viewer question. Would you support toll lanes in Nashville if they promise faster commutes, or do you think tolls are the wrong solution? Steve, we'll start with you.
I think it might have been Brad earlier, maybe it was Jessica who mentioned tools in the toolbox. No one approach is going to solve every problem, or even one problem, but it definitely needs to be, in my opinion, a tool in the toolbox. And the choice lanes deployment that TDOT's looking at right now is a great approach. You're not going to be forced into paying that toll. You'll have the choice. And if you've been to it in Atlanta, it's dynamic pricing. So you may choose to use it certain times and not use it others. Maybe you choose to use transit, but it definitely has to be on the table.
All right, Sabrina, back to you.
I have to say, Steve took the words right out of my mouth. It is called Choose How You Move. And so I think our obligation, particularly on the public service side of things, is to make sure that the toolbox is as wide as it possibly can be and give folks the opportunity to opt in. As Steve said, sometimes you're running late and really need to get somewhere quickly. If being able to opt in to a choice lane that TDOT has put out enables that, but it means that on another trip you're heading to the Titans game and you're willing to take WeGo, I think that's where we really need to be, which is how do we maximize the number of options before everyone in our community.
And Jessica, your thoughts?
Yeah, great, thank you. I was just reading about this earlier today, and I think New York, since they instituted their congestion pricing, it has prevented somewhere between 10 and 20 million cars from driving into the city. They're using transit, they're walking, they're biking, they're using these active modes, and it's really helping drive down the congestion in New York City. So again, it's not just one tool in the toolbox, it's many, and the more options we have as residents, the better we will be able to navigate Nashville and the region. And if I could just tag on to the roadblocks, we mentioned it up front, the culture of we were talking about it before this, that we don't see people who don't see themselves riding the bus. But that's because for decades we've been building car first. All of our mobility infrastructure has been car first. So we are used to assuming that is our ultimate key to freedom, my car keys. But if you're sitting in traffic, you are not on your time. You are on their time. Nashvillians are spending 63 hours a year sitting in traffic. It is not advantageous for us to keep growing in this way. It is costing Nashville an aggregate of $1.2 billion to do that. And at some point, we do have to ask ourselves, how do we take a different tactic? And we're all here discussing these different tactics. But a large part of the roadblock is really getting people to embrace and understand that there is a different way to be mobile, and there are different tools in that toolbox.
All right, Malik, on to you.
Thank you. Just to be sure, could you repeat the question again?
Yeah, the tolls.
Right.
Would you support tolls?
Absolutely. I think when I think about tolls, I think about it on the spectrum, kind of like we talked about earlier. I think at the further end of the spectrum is something like rail. Earlier inside of the spectrum is making sure we have access to 24/7 transit. I think if we start building along that pipeline in terms of the most consistent things to build first, the easiest things to build first, and voters come back and say we want tolls, then we have to build tolls.
Brad, same question.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you heard earlier, it is a tool in the toolbox that we can consider. You'll see other cities where it's been used effectively. If you've been to Atlanta in the last 10 years, there's been a lot of infrastructure improvements and upgrades using a system similar to what TDOT is considering with the choice lanes or moving through that process. So it is absolutely a tool to consider when we look at it in the future.
Okay. Thank you all for your answers there. Well, earlier this month, we saw a congestion problem getting in and out of Nashville International Airport. And this is something that we rarely see. Leaders at BNA blamed several factors. An NFL game, 2 large conventions ending. All of this led to traffic tie-ups that kept people sitting in traffic, in some cases close to 2 hours. As the city grows, Brad, back to you. We'll start here. What can NDOT do to mitigate problems like what we saw?
Well, you've heard about the signals that we are deploying. That helps us be more proactive in how we manage our system. You've heard the term smart signals expressed a lot when we talk about the Choose How You Move program. That's what Sabrina was talking about, making those signals smart, making us able to learn and get in front of those changes in travel trends and increases in demand during those certain periods of time. I think planning with our partners is a big part of that as well. Knowing we do a lot of event planning with WeGo, and Metro Nashville PD is our core partner with that. So really working with that and with the state as well on the TDOT and with their freeway system. I think with these groups and planning to address and knowing ahead of time is really the key to addressing those issues.
Steve, your thoughts on the BNA backups?
Well, whether it be BNA or the major events, any major demand, there's an old saying that you don't build your dining room for Thanksgiving dinner. You build your system around a core set of requirements that are day to day, and then you look at how to augment that during unusual events. And I think Mass transit is a huge part of that. Part of the Choose How You Move program would include really a massive expansion of service to BNA. And if we're ultimately able to combine that with things like dedicated lanes along Murfreesboro Pike, I think it goes a long way. But let's add in those causal factors. Titans game, just a normal weekend of attractions. Now you add in other events. I've talked to my peers who run transit agencies in places like Los Angeles, Dallas, Atlanta that are hosting the World Cup. These are cities that already have massive transit systems, and they're having to look at significant expansion to accommodate those types of events. So I know Malik and the Chamber are working on how do we get bigger and better events to Nashville, as is the Convention and Visitors Corporation. I think for us to be successful at that and to have people want to bring their events back more than once, we're absolutely going to have to build out our mass transit system.
Oh gosh, I think you're so right. And you know, we're hoping to get a Super Bowl in Nashville. We're hoping to get the World Cup. So, you know, we're on it. Well, Nashville has made some improvements in recent years when it comes to pedestrians and cyclist safety. There's dedicated lanes and that sort of thing. What are the next steps when it comes to keeping people outside of their vehicles? And we'll start over here, because that's, you know, part of Choose How You Move. It's, you know, many fingers, and that's one of them.
Absolutely. I mean, this is something that's really close to my own heart. As someone who was a victim of a hit and run crash while I was a pedestrian, investments that we're making in our network are really critical at keeping everybody safe. So that starts with people in the car, but also means, as you said, the pedestrians and the bicyclists. So Choose How You Move has a really extensive program of 86 miles of sidewalks. That is the most transformational thing we can do to protect pedestrians. In places where today we just don't have sidewalks, we're going to add them in. In places where maybe the sidewalk all of a sudden ends, we're going to connect it to the rest of the sidewalk. Those 86 miles are perhaps the most fundamental, the most transformational way we can make sure that pedestrians have ample space in front of them. Beyond that, we're also taking a look at complete streets. What complete streets means is, how do we make sure that every street is built for all kinds of users? So that's not just pedestrians and bicyclists, but it's moms with strollers. It's someone who just broke a bone in a football game and is in a wheelchair. It's really making sure that our streets are not wholly dedicated to cars, but all those other users. And frankly, you know, not to sound like we're going to harp on them, because they are pretty magical, but those traffic signals we've talked about, can you imagine being able to make sure that you and your mom could actually cross the street and get to the other side safely and not find yourself sprinting over? So it's a patchwork of investments that we're making throughout the system. When we think about where we're focusing Choose How You Move investments, we've taken a really hard look at what we call the high injury network. So where are the places on our system where the greatest number of deaths and injuries are occurring? Those are the areas where we want to funnel the resources the fastest.
Steve, the conduits that she was talking about, sort of they would all potentially funnel customers to you.
Every single transit trip begins with a walk. About 95% of our customers walk to their bus stop. Here, Sabrina mentioned the high injury network. There's a direct correlation between the high injury network in NDOT's system and the highest ridership rates in our system. So one of the project categories out of Choose How You Move is upgrades to all of our stops. But we have 1,600 stops in the system. 286 are targeted for significant upgrades, including, for instance, just this past week, our board approved a $1.4 million project. This sounds really expensive, for a particularly challenging stop at the intersection of Murfreesboro Pike and Thompson Lane. If you've ever been in that intersection.
Big intersection.
It is a big intersection. It's a complex intersection. It's a little bit daunting if you're in a car. It can be absolutely terrifying if you're a pedestrian. And if you want to ride the bus there, you're going to be a pedestrian at some point. So the project will entail expanding the sidewalk network to connect to NDOT's surrounding area, box culverts to bridge areas where we're actually forcing our customers out to walk out in the street to connect to sidewalks, as well as the actual stop improvements, which are designed for accessibility.
And all those things put pedestrians at risk. Jessica, you're shaking your head. You're excited about this.
Oh yeah, I'm on the MTA board, and I got a chance to see that come across the desk, and I was so excited that we're getting that done, because it's a huge improvement. To Sabrina's point, the safety improvements are absolutely critical, whether you're walking, biking, driving, taking transit. It all comes down to, do I feel safe enough to maybe venture out and take the bus for the first time? Do I feel safe, relatively certain that my 7th or 8th grader can walk to the bus safely? Because MNPS students get a strike card to ride WeGo buses for free, right? And so you want to make sure that safety is your priority in all ways.
Now, Malik, some people come here from other cities where they have some of this stuff. They're already comfortable doing certain things, but they want to be safe too. And in certain instances, I guess what we're offering them is probably not as safe as where they have come from.
Absolutely, Scott. And to Jess's point about protecting vulnerable populations, whenever you think about the future trajectory of Nashville, the only way we're going to be able to absorb the positive growth that we're looking for is by building density. The twin issue of density means you're going to have more people walking on our streets. So it's incredibly encouraging, and I sleep better at night knowing that these experts on this panel make this their priority every single day.
Brady's talking about you right now, one of those experts on the panel. And especially, I mean, that's got to be, major. You think of NDOT, you're thinking, roads and everything, but the, pedestrian safety's got to be a major concern for you because you guys are always doing things in the district.
It is our #1 priority, is really the safe operation of our system and what we can do to mitigate risk. I mean, that's what we do with all the strategies in terms of leading pedestrian intervals systems. We're actually giving pedestrians a head start in signals so they can establish their presence within the intersection. That lowers the risk of actually conflicts actually occurring in the intersection. So there's things like that, but even beyond, there's larger infrastructure investments that we want to make, like we've talked about sidewalks, but bikeways as well. We want to look at how we separate bikeways, and how we minimize that risk of conflict points. So it's really a safe system approach, and what I mean by that, it's a holistic look of safety, how you look at it from the engineering standpoint at the very beginning of a project, but also how you communicate to the public, how you educate the public, how you do encouragement. It's really a whole picture of all the pieces together.
And one of the things new that you guys have done downtown, you guys have probably seen it, you've got those intersections where I guess the crosswalks, I can go to any corner I want to. That's been a game changer, so I don't have to go here and then wait to go there.
Yeah. It's called the barn stance. So, actually the inventor of that had the last name of Barnes. It's not, but it also has a double meaning. You think of a Barnes dance as actually those people, fitting for Nashville, right? So, but yes, those are strategies that we're looking at, and we're actually deployed a few more of those barn stance scenarios, those all pedestrian phase scenarios at intersections. We're looking, when we talk about the signals that we've talked a lot about tonight, things that we're looking at more on the edge, the more cutting edge of technology when it comes to how we sense and detect people on the infrastructure. We're using LiDAR systems now along the Broadway corridor where we can actually in real time detect people moving in the street and watch the traffic, watch how it's flowing, and you can actually automate systems, automate phasing of certain pedestrian timings just to get ahead and be more proactive in how we lower that risk.
And just so people understand, they can actually count heads too, not just cars. Megan?
Thank you all for your thoughtful answers. Let's get back to our viewer questions. Next up, should downtown employers encourage remote work as a way to reduce congestion? Steve?
I hate to get super redundant, but back to tools in the toolbox. Without a doubt. And we still see that, and we still see it in the patterns of our ridership. For instance, ridership on the WeGo Star, which is heavily oriented toward downtown office employees, much lower on Fridays and Mondays than it is Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. But while we're talking about what employers can do, I'm going to put in a shameless plug for WeGo Ride, which is our employer sponsorship program, where employers will actually pay for bus passes for their folks to use the transit system. And it's not limited to work trips. They can use it for anything they want. We are now up to, I want to say it's about 80 WeGo Ride customers or companies. That's a 50% increase over 3 years ago. We continue to welcome more. Some of the largest and most prominent employers in Nashville have historically been in the program and are joining the program. So that's another thing that employers can do. Get your employee that WeGo Ride Pass, let them work remotely when that's appropriate, and just it's a whole mix of things.
All right, thank you for that. We'll go down the line. Jessica, you're next.
Absolutely. I'm going to echo Steve Bland here on that. Like, tools in the toolbox. Remote work is excellent. To your point, the parking garage at my office is kind of empty on Mondays and Fridays, but Tuesday through Thursday, I'm parking way far away. So yeah, and also encouraging employers to subsidize bus fare in addition to or instead of parking, I think would go a long way to encouraging people to choose a different or active mode of transportation.
Malik?
Absolutely, Megan. You know, a lot of employers are taking really innovative approaches to try to help with congestion. I know this isn't downtown, but I want to throw a plug to Nora, who runs Green Hills Mall, who provides a bus pass to almost every single one of her employees to help alleviate the density. But when I hear the question of congestion downtown, I think of a funny anecdote former Mayor Purcell and current Mayor O'Connell make, that in the early 2000s there are more dogs right now than there were people downtown in the early 2000s. That tells us that downtown is actually a neighborhood where people live, so those kind of issues work hand in hand.
Fred?
So at NDOT, we have what we call our Travel Demand Management Program, TDM program. It's actually TDM week this week, so we're having a lot of professionals get together and talk about that. We spend a lot of time doing outreach to businesses in different communities of those opportunities. You heard about providing fares for transit as well. That's part of our TDM strategy. So really trying to connect the dots and bring people together to talk about those solutions is what we're focused on at NDOT.
And finally, Sabrina.
I think one other way employers can really help make this connectivity better is really by thinking about where they're putting their offices. You know, I was talking to someone just last week who told me that he was really disappointed when he learned that his office was not moving downtown, right? This is someone who really wants to work in the urban core, who wants to be able to walk or take a bus to and from work. And so I think, to Malik's point, creative employers are starting to ask their employees these kinds of questions. Where do you want to be based? How do you want to get there? What days of the week are most crucial for you to be in office having collaborative meetings with your colleagues? Are there days that are best done remotely from home? So again, I think one size does not fit all, and there are lots of jobs in this city that you cannot perform remotely. So we can't say that remote work is the only tool that we're going to use to address congestion, because for so many hardworking Nashvillians, there is no version of remote work.
No, and a lot of companies are sort of pulling people back in these days. You know, whenever you have a town hall like this, as a news person, you're always secretly hoping we'll be able to break some news, and it's so cool. I've heard different things, like I hadn't heard that before, didn't know this was coming up, didn't know you were doing that. And here's an opportunity for you guys, each one, to break a little news for us with final thoughts, and Steve, will start over there. Sure. Parting shots.
Well, I guess my last thought with respect to mass transit, public transportation, is we've rightfully spent a lot of time talking about congestion and how do you get people who currently drive on the bus. But I hope we don't lose sight of the people who don't have that choice. Significant, about 80% of our riders say they ride with us because they have no viable alternative. They don't own a car, they're unable to drive a car. So we are, I'm not going to say they're only, but their primary means to get around. And those are the folks, to Sabrina's point, when the pandemic was at its peak and our ridership dropped by 2/3, that meant there were still about 10,000, 12,000 people a day riding the bus. Those were your construction workers, your hospital workers, people stocking grocery store shelves. So I hope when we look at these alternatives and we identify where we need to deploy resources, we don't lose sight of that. When we opened in North Nashville, the Dr. Ernest Rip Patton Jr. North Nashville Transit Center about 1.5 years ago, with service improvements, we expanded the access to opportunity to one of the lowest auto ownership neighborhoods in the city. And within about a 45-minute average commute, people in that neighborhood now have access to 100,000 more jobs than they did before we did that project and those service improvements. So I just hope we don't lose sight of a group of folks who typically don't get represented.
And there are companies all over that need those workers to be able to get from where they live, to the core, wherever to work. Let's just move down the line. Jessica.
I want to thank you again for having this conversation in public. This is really great. Change doesn't happen in a vacuum. The historic Choose How You Move funding program, transportation improvement program, didn't happen overnight. It took well over a decade, some would say 2, depending on who you're talking to. So that takes a lot of education, a lot of talking, a lot of communicating, a lot of community engagement. So if you're looking to get involved, I highly recommend people who are out there like questioning or interested to look at the Transit Alliance's website. We have ways to get involved in educational programs, to look at organizations like Walk Bike Nashville, Civic Design Center, Transit Now Nashville. Even the Nashville Chamber is a big supporter of improving mobility in Middle Tennessee. So there are options to learn more and get involved in this conversation as we continue to drive progress for transit and mobility infrastructure and services in Middle Tennessee.
I know your website's also a good place for people to connect. Like if you need some of these things, but I don't know anybody, that's the place. Malik.
Absolutely, Scott. I wish I had some breaking news for you.
Well,
but
all news,
unfortunately, I don't have any for you right
man.
now. But I think it's really important to remember that transit is more than just moving people. It's more than moving goods. It's about really connecting people to opportunity. At the beginning of this conversation, we talked about values. One of the values that we really believe in is making sure we have a region where everyone, regardless of their zip code or where they live, can really take advantage of the economic opportunity in Nashville. If you live in a neighborhood where you don't have access to good transit and the job you want is on the other side of town, that job may as well not be there. So it's really important that we continue these investments and continue planning for the future.
Yeah, rises all boats.
That's right.
Brett.
So break news, right? So
No pressure, sir, no pressure.
So I guess I go back to our traffic management center. You know, we opened it last October, so we're coming up to our 1-year anniversary of that center. Right now we operate between 6:30 a.m. and 10 p.m. We want to go to a 24/7 operations in the future. We're in the process of reviewing software systems in our TMC. That's part of Choose How You Move as well, is how we operate those systems together. So we're going through an evaluation process. So a lot of development in that space.
Are you talking about AI to kind of help, see people and make decisions?
Yeah, well, yes, there is the opportunity to use machine learning in what is considered AI systems as they become more ubiquitous, in society. But yes, we are looking at different innovative solutions as part of the new software system.
All right, Sabrina, you get the last bite at the apple.
Oh, I love that. So maybe I'll just start with a thank you, right? Choose How You Move did pass with 66% of the vote just last year, and it's why I'm here. It brought me here from out of town to implement this amazing program. And so maybe just the thought I'd leave you with is next time you are either sitting in traffic or watching traffic or a part of traffic, like we learned earlier, and you see that little orange cone or you see a crane working away, I want you to think about this moment. And think about the fact that you voted, and as a result of your actions, we're investing in this network. And so the next time you find yourselves in that intersection, maybe you'll be a little bit better. Change is hard, and it doesn't happen overnight. And so every time you see an orange cone, think back and know that that's us investing in you to keep you here in Nashville.
Planting the seeds, some good thoughts. Guys, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for watching our growing Nashville Transportation Town Hall.
If you missed any portion of this town hall, we'll post it on the Fox Nashville YouTube channel. We will see you again tonight on Fox 17 News at 9.